you'd think you think he'd start to be slowing down, but no, he's just getting better and better.
He's the best 9 in the world right now.
Yeah.
Currently,
I think
there will be
definitely got the best skill set.
Yeah. Hello, and in the week that Manu becomes a shark, Orlando signs for Newcastle as the Jaguares. Players continue to pick up contracts in Europe. London Irish will play their home games at the Stoop. Old Deer Park is much nicer. Faz confirms he's playing in the Championship, and Ted Hill becomes the youngest Worcester captain. Let's meet the team. Good evening, Johnny Sheldrake, Joe Tricky, and Harry Berryman. How you doing, lads?
Good evening, Johnny.
Hey.
Good, thanks.
Good stuff. And I'm Johnny Hayes, and this is the Ruck and Mall podcast. On this episode, Jordie wins the Battle of the Barretts, and one of the best comebacks in rugby history occurs in Hamilton. Over in Super Rugby AU, Dalgooney dazzles the Force, and the Brumbies burger one against the Tars. And we'll finish up with looking at our team of the week and players of the week, and then predict our back row for the first Lions test next year. And I've got a spanner to throw into Harry's master plan for having Courtney Lawes at 6. So stay tuned for that. But let's get straight into the rugby this week. And we'll start on Saturday in Super Rugby Aotearoa, where the Hurricanes edged out a 29-27 win over the Blues. Let's start with the MVP of the game, the absolute minibus or a tank that is Lani Laumape. That try when he runs over Barrett is a scene of absolute beauty. And he then decides to run over a Tira Black as well, is very good.
Who didn't he run over, to be honest?
The cameraman?
I think Aaron Carroll had one good tackle on him, where if he hadn't stopped him, Laumape was going to score, and Carroll held him and stopped him from making too much ground. But yeah, Laumape is quite good.
He's quite good. I was shouting at him in the first minute of the game because he caught the ball from kickoff, went into contact, and decided to roll on the ground about 4 times and gave away a penalty. And I was like, for Pete's sake. And then he kind of, we'll forget the first minute of the game. The rest of it was immense.
Well, yeah, it took to the 4th minute for him to do his thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's continue with the Canes then. And again, they're 3 from 3. They're sort of in the outside lane of Super Rugby Aotearoa. It sort of dents the Blues' title hopes, but yeah, they look quality again. I was really pleased to see Reed Prinsep bang himself a try. Yeah, it's just they're looking good. Anyone got any thoughts really on the Canes in general?
Very strong, really. 1 to 15, 1 to 23. I think more or less everybody had a good moment. I thought Scott Scrafton's carrying was as good as I've seen from him, certainly in Aotearoa. Had a bit of an extra yard of pace and acceleration into the contact, which sometimes he's a bit too tired to do. I guess there weren't too many scrums, or the ones that there were, the Canes were really quite dominant over the Blues, so he didn't waste too much energy on that. Had a bit more for his carries, which was nice to see. And yeah, no, it was all around pretty good game from the Canes.
Yeah, I think a lot of it stems from, and it started really with Jordie coming back. And a few of the players sort of getting into their groove, and it's quite clear to see now that that's very close to being the full strength Hurricanes 15 team that they're quite comfortable playing with and know how each other play. Having Jordie there means that Laumape can play perhaps slightly differently, perhaps with a bit more freedom, because there's somebody else there that he can kind of pull off the big plays and do something slightly different. It gives Laumape a bit of freedom.
Yeah, and I think it was particularly clear really from that first try, when you've got obviously Umaga Jensen's not really, no one else in that backline apart from Garden Basham and Barrett are particularly known for their distribution, although Laumape does have it in him. The fact that first try can be scored when Laumape is the left winger, and they've moved everybody around to end up with Laumape in a one-on-one with a succession of much smaller players. When they can isolate people in that way, when they've got the 2 playmakers, and when the second playmaker is as much of a threat running as anyone else on the pitch. In Jordie Barrett, they have a lot more options, and it all fits together really.
I think that first try typified, though, how confident they are at the moment. They seem like a team full of confidence. Like Laumape against Beaudie Barrett, probably one of the best players in the world, has been one of the best players in the world for a number of years, and just willing to just chuck the ball out to him and go for it and go on the outside. Like, you talk about wingers not trusting their pace, but the fact that your 12's ready to have a go at it, it's impressive. They seem like a team on the up and a bit more organised.
We had a chat yesterday about like because with Joe and I's jobs, we're coaching younger rugby players, and specifically on like running lines and attacking structures and stuff. But at the moment, the Hurricanes' attacking lines are seriously ridiculous. They're the best in the competition by a considerable way. Peter Munga-Jensen again I thought was absolutely fantastic, just running the right angle against with Laumape getting over the gain line. And we've talked before like about how Canes predominantly will use Laumape, but when you've got probably one of the best 12s, if not the best 12 in the world at the moment, you've got to use him. And I think when you've got the guys with the skill set of Karifi, you can throw a 30-metre ball, and then you've got guys like Lamb and Van Veek on the wing with Barrett at 15. They are seriously a serious danger side. What I've sort of noticed, and we'll pick this up as well in the Highlanders and the Chiefs game in a moment, but the importance that maybe Super Rugby teams have neglected in the past is having a very successful driving maul. The Blues, though we talked on Friday about Satutu being missing in there, but their maul again was fantastic. And Kurt Eklund's try, who I thought was absolutely fantastic, really epitomises the step up that you've got to have a successful driving maul at the moment.
Well, I completely agree. And remember, Papali's try was from a driving maul as well. In the first half, there was a stat in the sort of as they were forming up for the line out that Papali then scored from, that 55% of the Blues tries had come from maul from line out situations. So obviously, a decent amount of that will be backline plays off a maul, off a line out rather. But for that to be such a high percentage is quite interesting. I think compared to the Hurricanes, where it was more down in the 30s for their number of tries created out of their line out. And interestingly, the Blues, their tries scored off counter-attack was 26%, which was apparently far and away the highest of anyone in the competition, which I suppose is not that surprising given the speed of their outside backs, plus their 13 in Rico Ioane. But quite an interesting stat. I'm not really sure how they measure it, where the borderline between this is now off a line out, this is now just off open play, but just shows as you say, the Blues maul and pack as a whole is doing really, really well at the moment. That being said, well, he got a try, and I said on Friday that it would be really good for the Blues that even though they're missing Hoskins Satutu, the quality of player to come in at number 8 of Akira Ioane, you're not missing much. But you can see why you can see that he's not played at 8 in a struggling scrum for a while, because you could obviously other things went well for the Hurricanes, but Ioane, his horror show controlling the ball at the back of that scrum and the pressure that TJ Paranara put on him played a big, big part in the Blues not winning that game.
Yeah, completely agree. I think we talked again about possession wins you games, and the Hurricanes had more possession, which means they had more chances to score. And though the Blues kept themselves in it and were winning the game towards the end, they have missed Hoskins to a further extent, but I don't think necessarily it's a horror show for the Blues in there. But what I would propose as a question to you is, if you're Ian Foster, if you're the All Blacks coach at the moment, right, you could play in Australia in October in a hypothetical test, let's say. Richie Mo'unga is fly half. We're not going to argue that. I don't want to argue that now. But who is going to play it? Who is playing 15 at the All Blacks? Because for me, Beaudie Barrett should not be in that 15 shirt.
No, not on current form.
Who's playing 15 for the All Blacks if you're playing against
Jordan.
Australia tomorrow?
Well, Jordan,
Jordan.
yeah.
Will
Because
Jordan.
you go on form and you're playing Australia, so it's not the hardest test for them. So give Will Jordan a nice little run out.
Oh, sorry. I thought you. I think it's Jordie Barrett. Jordie Barrett, and then he's also doing the goal kicking with Beaudie in the 22 shirt and Will Jordan in the 23.
Yeah, I think it's a good battle between Jordan and Barrett, isn't it? Jordie, that is. They're both playing very well. Slightly different players. Obviously, Jordie's already played for the All Blacks and he's a little bit more established, perhaps a little bit more consistent. Haven't seen a huge amount of Jordan's defence, have we? He's obviously great in attack. Huh?
Yeah, we haven't really needed to.
No, exactly. So that's something they haven't really tested. We're aware that Jordie's pretty solid in defence, and as good as the All Blacks are in international rugby, you have to be awesome in defence as well. So I think that's one of the aspects that there might be questions over Jordan's name, but Barrett's got it all as well, hasn't he?
To be fair though, like after his sluggish start, obviously getting run over by Laumape probably hurt him a little bit, and obviously getting booed throughout the game for the Hurricanes. Obviously, they're very cut up still that he left them, but he took his try very well. First, he pops up at first receiver, and I think with Atira Black now looking like he's injured, it kind of forces Liam McDonald to play Barrett at 10 in the next game, which they just need to do. Like Barrett is one of the best rugby players in the world, and he's been like that for a few years. Is he on the top form at the moment? In my opinion, he's not. But he's playing out of position. He's not a 15.
And he said it after the game. He said in an interview, "My preferred position is 10." And actually, even if people think he's better at 15, probably for him and his game and his mental kind of approach to it, if he's playing in the position he wants to, he's probably going to play better.
Yeah. It also pushes like Richie Mwanga to have the game of his life every game, week in, week out, and push it in. And there's no Foster can't panic about this. There's a notion that you've got to get your best players on the pitch. But if Beaudie Barrett doesn't start a test match for the All Blacks, you pick between Jordie Barrett, Damien McKenzie, Will Jordan at the moment. They're three fantastic fullback. And then you can bring Beaudie off for the last 20 minutes. It's not the end of the world. That would make them unstoppable. It generally would. Rather, if they've kind of shoehorned two fantastic fly halves into their team, they lose in the X factor like Damien McKenzie brings, or Jordie Barrett, or Will Jordan. So it's just at the moment, I really hope that Beaudie in next week, as I say, he should start at 10, and hopefully we're going to see Carter come on at some point on the bench. But it's this time for him to sort of go off now and really take that Blues team forward, as they've lost 2 games on the trot now.
Yeah, getting a bit worried really. Just quickly on going back to the Blues before we move on to what turned out to be the much more exciting game. I was excited to see Imoni Narawa play for the Blues. He might not want to watch that game back.
Not his defence on the first try, anyway.
Yeah, you could say he was responsible for the first try. Got yellow carded 9 minutes later. Was generally out of position quite frequently in defence, and had a couple of good carries, but in general didn't get the opportunities he'd want. Probably not the ideal game for him in terms of his attacking chances, but players have had better debuts.
Yeah, he definitely there's obviously a lot of talk of him. Obviously, he's coming from the Bay of Plenty, where a lot of the Blues players have selected their players from, because obviously the Bay of Plenty were in the final of the Mitre 10 last time out, and they're a fantastic outfit up on the North Island. But yeah, he absolutely got bought in for the first try, where he doesn't need to commit at all, and that leaves the space, and that's why Barrett's got to come over. But I guess one of those things, and he'll learn from it. But I'm excited. I'd like to move on, if we can, to the Chiefs Highlanders game, because it's one of the best comebacks in rugby history. I'm going to just talk you through it if you've not seen the game. But the Chiefs were 31-7 up at 43 minutes and 51 seconds into the game. At 73 minutes and 38 seconds, the Chiefs were 31-19 up. So still 2 scores ahead with 7 minutes to go. And at 82 minutes, the final whistle blows and the Highlanders have won 33-31. And I've got 2 words to say. Aaron Smith.
Yeah. It's actually quite interesting that Aaron Smith has taken so much on his shoulders for the Highlanders in this tournament, because having sort of another reference back to fantasy rugby here, but I had him in my fantasy team for the original Super Rugby season this year, basically because he was the last scrum half left, because previously, and really for the All Blacks as well, he doesn't run with the ball very much. He's not usually that kind of 9. He's very much a perfect passing, perfect decision-making, good leader, tells everyone else what to do. But in Aotearoa, he has been the main attacking weapon of that Highlanders backline, and far and away the most dangerous 9 in the New Zealand competition. He's been unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he's older than he's ever been. And you'd think he'd start to be slowing down. But no, he's just getting better and better.
He's the best 9 in the world right now.
Yeah.
Currently,
I think
there will be
definitely got the best skill set.
Yeah. You can Faf de Klerk is fantastic and he impacts games to the same extent, but the sheer volume of what has happened in this game, I just can't really compute. Like in the traditional format of Super Rugby is if a team goes 31-7 up at halftime, they go on and win 65-7. Like the Highlanders were absolutely dreadful in the first half. Their defence was awful. They didn't really know what they were doing. To be fair, the Chiefs flipping out. Someone must have told them that if they told them that Super Rugby Aotearoa started 5 weeks ago, they were fun. They suddenly turned up for the first half, but the Highlanders were absolutely at 6s and 7s the majority of that game. And he comes out after the second half. They concede another try, and then he's like, "Right, lads, here we go." And he literally drags them up. 100%. There's definitely players that have contributed in that. Josh Ione, we talked about like previously. What a player he is to come in, slots in nicely at 12.
Mitch Hunt
is
a really good game.
But he has pulled that team up, and I just want to talk about that try to win it at the end, where Lachlan Boshier has had his best game for the Chiefs. It was unbelievable. He's got 2 amazing turnovers, which I was just screaming at the TV like, no, how is that a penalty? And you look at it breakdown and he's on his feet. He's perfectly timed. He got them out of jail twice. He got the Chiefs out of jail twice and they still fucked it up. And the Highlanders stick it in the corner. And Aaron Smith, it's poor defence. I can't remember who. I think maybe it might be Tapia and Leonard Brown that got mixed up.
Leonard Brown ran in basically, got drawn completely, and it was quite a simple try in the end. But it was really good.
Yeah, just a ridiculous level of fight back from that and that side of sense.
Yeah,
and actually, they may not have the kind of all the big star names, but that pack has a lot of grit, is what I would say.
Mm.
They're a tough pack, and actually get them within 5 meters, they're going to do the job. And Mitch Hunt, I think, kind of everyone was talking about before kind of Super Rugby that kind of he might be a bit of a weak link, and that might be where they're lacking. But I think kind of with Aaron Smith playing so well, it has allowed Mitch Hunt to kind of develop, be a bit more confident knowing that he's got Aaron Smith, who most of the ball to the forwards is going off Aaron Smith, as we know. And kind of it's allowed him to just kind of express himself a bit more. And his kicking off the tee and in hand is pretty good.
It's all right. It's average. There's a lot of better kickers, but I can definitely get your point with Ione as well coming back in. I would like to see Mitch Hunt potentially shift back to 15 because he is ridiculously fast, as we've said before. But that try he scored, it's beautiful hands by Collins, who tips it on, and Josh Mackay, who the sevens guy who's come in, and his distribution skills, though he's a winger, is ridiculously at a high level. But Mitch Hunter's got serious gas.
Yeah, I think it really looks like this Highlanders team, as they've worked out what they want to do with the back three, and Hunt's get just increasing in confidence every week. You can quite feasibly see them keeping. Obviously, they might change Gregory and Nareki, or potentially have Ioane in, but the Highlanders are now the most settled 15, or really the most settled team in the tournament now. You could pick the team they would like to play next week and the week after, and really it's very similar to the teams they've picked the whole way through. They've fine-tuned what they want to get out of that back three, finally including Mackay, who was really good for them last year and then sort of dropped off the face of the earth for the beginning of this season. And then, funnily enough, as soon as they start him, has a huge impact, a great carry through the middle, and that opened up the space for Smith's try. I think they're finally working out what they want to do. And yeah, combined with another good game from Mikaeli Tuu, they're looking good.
I think
it's as well, like it's also, we talked about pushing on players that are on the bench, like Joe Nareki maybe hadn't had the best Super Rugby Aotearoa beforehand, but putting him on the bench, Mackay's come in, he's shot on, and that for me, that's try of the weekend for me. It's such a good line. He's Tirangari is not, Triple T is not slow, but he's absolutely gassed him and just gone. That's what they need. They need that. They to be able to bring him off the bench is so exciting for them. So exciting. And again, another game-changing moment in there.
Yeah. You almost feel...
Sorry, I was about to say, you just mentioned it just then. What a try, but it was so important in that context of the game. That's what ignited that fight back. If he doesn't score that try, doesn't make that break, especially where they were in the field and at the time on the clock, they probably wouldn't have won that game. He needed to make that break at the time that he did. And that really fired it for the rest of that match.
Do we know why unfortunately I missed this match. Do we know why Cruden didn't come on for the Chiefs?
No, and I'm really surprised by that, because as soon as the Highlanders were coming back, and to be fair, from minute one, it was quite an open game. I mean, it was perfect conditions and it was quite an open running game. And actually, as soon as it was clear the Highlanders were coming back, especially once they got to 19 points, stick Cruden on, old head, settle the game down. And I don't know why they didn't do it. And it's not as if he's been playing really badly, but he's got a lot of experience under his belt, and he can just be kicking to the corners and settling them down. And they looked rattled. Even when they were up at 73 minutes, they still look rattled.
And it might be as well a coach point of view of Gatland. Like, Gatland's got so much experience. Like, they are the Highlanders were on like a runaway train, and the fact that as I said before about Boshear's 2 turnovers out of nowhere, but you need, like, someone like Sam Cane just need to be like, right, lads, calm down. Just we've got still 2 scores. The fact that they let them back in, it was like a headless runaway where actually, get Cruden on, like, get him to put the ball in the right areas, make the Highlanders play from deep. Like, it was just there was the clear lack from that in there. But just on the Chiefs, that first half was absolutely fantastic. As I say, where have they been for 5 weeks? They were quick running lines, summed up by Boshear's first try. It's a lovely tip on by Sam Cane, showing that's a great distribution. So it's a nice little tip with a great running line.
I do
hit the hole, they've fallen over, but it's a nice try.
Yeah, obviously well finished once he'd found a hole that a guy had fallen over. But yeah, I guess you've still got to run with the ball. Very, very strange. I suppose promising from the Chiefs. Like, we always knew this was going to be hard for them, this game. So good to see that they were capable of that first half. They just got to keep it going.
Well, that was the interesting thing, that there was a quip from Justin Marshall at 18 minutes in, And he said, I spoke to both the Chiefs coaches separately, and they both said the same thing. Like, thing we really need to improve on is starting the game well. We did that this week, but they forgot that there's another 40 minutes after that. And it's kind of like, oh, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points I'm going to make on that. Yeah, I think the Chiefs did play really well in that first half. I think that's partly to do with the tries that they scored where the Highlanders' defence and kind of letting them through. But they've got to make those breaks. They've got to score those tries. One of the interesting stats that I saw at the beginning of the match was that Chiefs have had the most ball in play time of any team in the tournament. So they've had a lot of possession. And we've seen that with some of these matches. They've had a lot of possession. They haven't taken their chances. Today they did take their chances, partly due to the Highlanders sort of letting them, having quite poor defence in places. But they're still not taking that ultimate chance of actually finishing and winning the game. So I think that's one of their key problems at the moment. They're not closing anything out, whether it be phases of play leading to a try or just the game in general. And that seems to be becoming a bit of a problem for them. They're getting into that mindset of expecting to lose a match almost.
I think as well, like just building on that point as well, they for the first time in this competition, their maul worked and their line out was absolutely fantastic. Like Slater, who looked like he won the lottery when a couple of those pushover tries, got 2 lovely tries. But it's the second one where they've gone to the back and they've set it. And the Highlanders, admittedly, were really slow to adapt. Like, it's Parkinson on his own for it felt like 5 minutes waiting for the rest of the Highlanders to wait. Oh, shit, we've got to go to the back here, lads, come on. And by that time, it's really well set, just so flat. And we talked about the Brumbies lineup being one of the best in the world at club level anyway. But yeah, it's something to really think about on that front. They were better. Now they've got to play rugby for 40 minutes. Yeah, go on, Harry, because I'll
just quickly. So I know we briefly mentioned it before. I've been sort of half watching the highlights back again while we've been talking. Mitch Hunt makes every single kick, and that's what wins in the game.
He made quite a big one to win it as well, didn't he? Wasn't an easy kick.
I thought he missed a kick at the start.
Maybe, but certainly within the sort of second half.
Oh yeah, I think he might miss the penalty.
In the run of those tries and the one penalty. Yeah, no, in the run of those tries, he gets all of them. It wouldn't really be expected of him, really, as a sort of half fullback, half 10. But his kicking has been a real point of difference for the Highlanders.
Got one question for you from this game. If you were to pick a New Zealand team to start next week, would Sam Cane be starting 7?
Johnny and I discussed this.
He wouldn't even be in the 23. He wouldn't be in the 23. He'd be in the stand watching the game.
We should do at the end of this, we should do 2 different teams. We should do what's your All Blacks team? Yeah. And then what's your team of the tournament? Just straight performances, because
today
at the end of Aotearoa,
yeah, because
there'll be some people who bring themselves into that All Blacks recognition, and there'll be some people who obviously, like Ash Dixon, is not going to play for the All Blacks, but has been fantastic. He's quite old now,
yeah,
and they've got Dane Coles and Cody Taylor,
and Kurt Eklund.
Yeah, the
boss.
Parsons.
Well, again, James Parsons not going to play for the All Blacks. He's 33. He might even be older than that. Anyway, I think some people have really, really shown the level that they can play at, and some of the All Black incumbents have not. It's going to be interesting to see what they do.
We talked about this on Friday as well, but I think Foster's forced himself into a bit of a corner with picking Sam. Sam Cane's a fantastic rugby player, but they've picked him from 4 years ago that he was going to be the next guy. But you've got Papali'i's the best 7 in New Zealand at the moment, statistically and impactful stuff. Behind him, Dylan Hunt's the next best. 7, just 7s. You've got Ardi Savir, who's going to play 6, 7, or 8.
Whoever he likes.
You choose. He's going to be there. He's probably going to play 6 because the best number 8 in the competition is Hoskins to fit on his day. And then you've got the replacements, like even Karifi's putting his hand up. Reed Princeps having a quality game. Lachlan Beaudie had his best game. I haven't even mentioned Peter Sakulu.
Or even Fetu Douglas at the Crusaders.
Yeah.
He's always fantastic.
Cullen Grace, Tom Christie.
Well, I think it says a lot when, like, if you're actually looking just in the Chiefs, Boschier is probably better than Kane at the moment. And I mean, that's in his own team. I mean, I know he's only recently come back, but you'd think, especially if you're looking at that Chiefs pack, in the same way when Ardi Salvea came back, you expect him to come back, have a massive impact, and be the leader in that. And he gave away 2 penalties. He got a yellow card. He didn't look particularly effective around the park. I mean, he can carry really well, but yeah.
He spent a lot of the game whining at the referee for like the disallowed McKenzie try, where you think McKenzie scored an absolute, like, they missed a tackle on him. And he's like, but sir, it was 3 phases ago. No, it's in the same phase, Sam. It's not gone out of play. It's still in the same build-up. They're allowed to go back and have a look at it. He's like, oh, but you're moaning about that for? Like, get on with it. The fact that Beaudie's dug them out of a hole twice and they've still gone on and lose the game, and it's not, yeah, I don't know. But I think Foster's potentially pulled the trigger on him a little bit too soon. We might be a bit over harsh on him, but for me anyway, looking at it, New Zealand's back row options are ridiculous, but they're better players at the moment than Sam Cane in there. Last thing that I wanted to just quickly discuss before we moved on was, you might not have all seen it, but Rob Thompson got a yellow card for the first real high shot in Super Rugby Aotearoa. The commentator said, "Whoa, what a hit!" But if you break it down, he's hit him in the face with his shoulder. And this is what the referee went to the TMO with, and I've quoted it. Shoulder to chin with some force. Bollocks. He's hit him in the face with quite a lot of force in the face. World Cup, that's a red card. There's a lot of words that were given, not given the World Cup. It's kind of taken a bit of a back step anyway.
Yeah. So I think, to be fair to the commentator, the first angle on that did look like it was sort of one of those, like almost that kind of angle, chest on shoulder, where it was just a lot of force coming in on the side of the guy, and it was all upright. So really the kind of tackle that we are trying to get rid of, where the both players' heads are in the same kind of area, because that's the real risk, is the head-on-head impacts. But then, as you saw the reverse angle, just catches him straight in the face with the shoulder.
I think if he does get a red card, the Chiefs press on when Thompson's off the field. But if it is a red card, the Highlanders don't win that game. Like, it would probably be too much. It's a completely different thing. But it was something that they've generally in Super Rugby, high tackles, they're not there. The players are really like disciplined, that they tackle low and then dominantly. So that to come up, I think, is up there. But yeah, overall, in sort of summary, Highlanders, brilliant work from Aaron Smith. Chiefs showing they can play rugby for 40 minutes. They just need to play for 80 next week, and they might try to finally get on the scoreboard. But it's great to see the Highlanders win it again. They're my sort of second after the Crusaders. But let's pop across 3 hours, get on a plane, go to 3 hours, and we'll get to Australia. And we'll the Reds continue to dominate. Well, not dominate, but they are top of Super Rugby AU, which maybe some people hadn't have thought after 3 games. But they got past the Force, another strong performance from the Force, but they didn't really. And then they sort of tailed off towards the end in the 31-24 loss. Anyone particularly thoughts about this game?
Yeah, another game I only watched the highlights of, but some pretty serious highlights in this game. Another nice, dangerous tackle, which we don't like to see, but I mean, if you're going to have one per game, you might as well have a good one. A lot of very interesting tries, some good work for some guys you've literally never heard of playing for the Force. that being said, one of the players that we have heard of, Marcel Bracker, the USA 13, who had a pretty good World Cup for them. He was quite heavily involved in their 2 early tries, 2 nice long passes to put the wingers through the hole, which is quite good. It's pretty much all you need from a 13 in Super Rugby. Good for them. Just looking at that team sheet, it's always amazing. The number, like for somebody who more or less knows every player who ends up playing, or at least is vaguely familiar with almost every player who ends up playing in a Super Rugby match, to have never heard of almost anyone on a team is it's always
But it's quite nice actually being able to watch that and go, actually, we're learning about these players and actually seeing that they've actually got some very talent in there. One of those is being is where you've got Stowers in the back row. He sort of throws himself. He fancies himself as a bit of a winger. He sort of picks himself these moments when he goes out wide. But Jack McGregor, if you've not really seen him play at the 15, was absolutely brilliant. His first try is ridiculous. Like again, questionable haircut. With his mullet, he's obviously seen Jack Goodhue and think, that's how I need to be a great rugby player, a decent haircut. But he's very good. Byron Roston on the wing, getting a lovely intercept from James O'Connor, who was looking to put the Reds comfortably ahead at half time, and he's run 100 metres. Very, very fast lad. As I say, the Force aren't a bad side, actually. But as we said last week, I'm probably going to keep saying this, they're lacking some oomph and they're lacking some Super Rugby experience at the moment. But the Reds have got some ridiculously good players. Talia Tupu, again, unbelievable. Felipe Dangunu standing up on the wing, potentially as another option for the Australian wing berth. They're an exciting team. And it's nice to see James O'Connor. James O'Connor made his debut for the Force at 17. He's the youngest player to ever play in Super Rugby. Like it's crazy how long he's been around for. But it's really nice to actually watch him. And he struggled for the last few years. His campaign at Sale wasn't great. He didn't really get a permanent fixture start in there. Obviously, he's been at Irish and played in a bit of France and stuff. But he's now back and he's clearly got a leadership role in that Reds team. Like Brad Thorne's put a lot of faith in him. And fly half is his best position because he's got some ridiculously exciting players. You've got Tate McDermott at 9, who's brilliant. He's going to be an Australian great. And it's really nice to see him play with absolute fluidity. And he was brilliant. And it was the first time that the Reds, for about 4 years, I think, or a while anyway, have maintained a winning streak, but also got above 75% kicking at goal, which is good to see.
Wow. Yeah, I think the Reds are one of the teams that I watched, the Australian teams that I watched the most of in the original Super Rugby competition. And this backline is more or less the one that started this game is more or less their best possible. You would obviously try and find a place for Pataya somewhere, probably on the wing instead of Dalgunu. But I expect it's very, very nice for O'Connor to play with Hamish Stewart at 12. He got a guy who started his career playing 10 and 15 for the Reds before O'Connor came back. And then when they knew that O'Connor was going to be available for the Reds and was going to be that experienced guy they could put in at 10 and then find something that Stewart would be better at. Seems like Stewart's put on a bit of weight and is playing really well as that second distributor in the back line, which is particularly effective when you've got powerful and fast runners outside them, and Dalgunu, Paisami and Feo Sortia. So yeah, it's a backline that you wouldn't be surprised to see quite a few of them playing together for Australia in the next few years.
As I say, they're sort of up there with the Brumbies for like the title at the moment. They look very good. They're the first, as I say, going back to the stat that I sort of mumbled through there, was they're on their first 4-game winning streak since 2013. So that's considering how much they've not been maybe the best team for a while, but they're sort of looking to be the back to best when the Reds won Super Rugby those years ago. But we'll move over to Waratahs and Brumbies. And it's Fines, the replacement scrum-half for the Brumbies. If you've not seen the try, comes off the bench, plays 10 minutes, sneaks one, great step, nicks it under the post, and the Brumbies come away with a 24-23 win. But yeah, thoughts on this?
I
Well,
think a New Zealand referee might call that for accidental offside. That try.
yeah,
As nice as it was.
sorry, Harry. I only managed to see the first half because I think I had to go and actually pick you up, Harry. And the Waratahs played really well in the first half and looked like they had the better of the Brumbies. So I didn't actually know that until you just said it, that the Brumbies ended up losing that game. So I thought that's quite important. And I think the Tars coming into this tournament weren't really given a huge amount of respect. Potentially they hadn't played very well before that, had they? So it seems like they're getting something together now, and they're playing some good rugby at least.
Yeah, as I say, like the Waratahs are much better. They obviously beat the Force the week before. Will Harrison probably won the battle over Lolosio in the 10 journeys. Unfortunately, Lolosio had to go off, but Cusack came on and was all right. But it was just the Waratahs are going to cause teams problem because they play heads up rugby and they're very, very exciting. Like the James Ram try, it's come from Harrison, who's just seen him from the other side. The Reds are just pretty, not the Reds, sorry, the Brumbies are just, they're kind of chill. They're not really in it at this point. And they've just whacked out an absolute beautiful 45-metre crossfield kick who Rams picked up and scored. And makes that youth and just a bit of excitement from the Waratahs, where you've got the Brumbies that have got all these experienced players in there, like your Kuandranis, your not Tamua, sorry. Anyway.
Thomas Banks is pretty experienced by now.
Yeah, they've got more of an experienced fixed squad. James Slipper, sorry, was what I was trying to get to. But these guys like Alan Alatoa, established Australians, like, and they've come and they weren't in it for the first. They were dreadful in the first half. Their discipline was awful. I think they conceded 8 penalties in a row. And I was kind of like, oh, I think the Tars going to nick it here. But they show that a good team at the end, that you stick in it, and power sometimes will eventually see you over. And the fact that you can bring on Scott Seo up with 40 minutes to go is quite ridiculous, to be honest.
Yeah, I think again only a highlights game for me this week. But Tom Horton, the guy who started at hooker for the Waratahs, not someone I was exceptionally familiar with beforehand. He looks quite young, but seems to be quite a nice aggressive carrier. And the lineouts that appeared on the highlights looked pretty accurate. So good, another good young name in what's already quite a young front row. I know Harry Johnson Holmes is got some quite high expectations out of him, and he's done all right in this Super Rugby AU. So again, like as pretty much we say this every single week with these Australian teams, they have a bunch of the sort of nice little category there of coming into the early middle of their career players who it's not their first season of Super Rugby, it's not their first season of professional rugby. Some of them it's not even their second, and they're starting to look really good. And you've just got to hope that for the sake of Australian rugby that they can keep going.
As I say, like Super Rugby AU is a lot more competitive than I ever thought it was going to be. Like Super Rugby Aotearoa is on another planet at the moment. The quality of rugby that's at the show there, but the Australian teams, because they're playing, there's more interest in Australia at the moment for that rugby. It's the way to go, I think. We won't get into league systems and stuff. We'll do that on another podcast, but it's good for them to be competitive, and it's enjoyable product to watch at the moment. But we'll leave the on-field rugby there for this week and sort of just go through our team of the week. So first of all, he's sort of Morley in, again, he had another good game, but he's been solid for the Hinders throughout Super Rugby Aotearoa, and that's Aidan Johnston. 2, we've talked about him, replacing James Parsons. It was Kurt Gatland. What lovely try. Another guy who got a try, the Tongan Thorn, Tanane Tupu, will rival Carl Sinclair as one of the best props in the world at the moment. 4, I wouldn't really talk about him, but Angus Scott Young for the Reds. He got 22 tackles and 2 turnovers in the game. He's a young, exciting second row with. He's joined by his second row partner, Lachlan Siakalotu. Again, big ball carrying second row, very good in the air. So one to watch as well for the Australians. 6 is again the ever powerful Shannon Frizzell, who's joined by it for the first time of our team of the week, is Lachlan Bosher. A try and 2 key turnovers, though in vain, was superb. Peter Sokolu joins the 8 berth with Hoskins 2-2 away this week, but there was a lot of options in that 8 with Mikolai Tudu having a great game as well, but he appeared to still above the rest there. Aaron Smith, we talked about him enough, quality. James O'Connor's at 10. Filippo Dangunu on the very electric on the left wing with Nali now Mappy at 12. I've sort of shifted around because I couldn't really find an outstanding 13 from this weekend. So I've moved Byron Ralston, the force winger, in 1. He's with his 2 tries and 141 metres. Jack McGregor moves from 15 into the right wing. Again, fantastic game. He ran over 100 metres again for the force and a try. And then obviously you can't not have Jordie Barrett in after a touchline grabbing win for the Hurricanes there. But yeah, Tricky, who's your player of the week?
Probably quite predictable. My player of the week is Ngani Laumape. He was just outstanding. An absolutely brilliant performance for the Hurricanes. And he was, obviously I'm supporting the Hurricanes. And when we did our top 5s at the beginning, I said that he's the key man for the Canes. And he hasn't really stepped up to that just yet, but he really did in this game. Just running over everything. The confidence that he clearly has at the moment is sky high. He looked like he felt like he could take on absolutely anybody in that team. And he pretty much did. So yeah, he was awesome.
Johnny?
I think I'm going to go for the obvious one, but Aaron Smith, because Aaron Smith is Aaron Smith. Probably the best 9 in the world at the moment. Is the best 9 in the world at the moment. And he just kind of keeps that team ticking. And actually, everyone knows that he's the key person, and everyone can try and target him, but he is so good that he's unstoppable.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Harry, who's yours?
So in a vacuum, given that if I'd watched every match this week, I think, yeah, I'd have to agree. Aaron Smith played the best 80 minutes of rugby this week, but the only match I was actually able to watch in full, the Canes Blues game, Laumape was very good, but I do think TJ Perenara was as responsible for them winning that game as anyone else. The pressure he puts on the opposition scrum, the Canes don't win many scrums, and they're not dominating the opposition scrum very frequently, but it happened in that game, and Akira Ioane did not get a moment's relaxation. Absolutely no chance that if he miscontrolled the ball, that Perenara would let him get away with it. And obviously that, on top of everything else Perenara does, just had a fantastic game. And the two of him and Smith are driving each other to be better than ever at the moment. It's really, really fun to watch.
My player of the week is a new guy that I've discovered from this week, and that is McGregor from the Force, Jack McGregor. Very, very exciting 15. As I said, I've mentioned him about his haircut, but really, really attacking running lines. Whether the future of the Force will be in Super Rugby or however they do, I don't know. But if I was one of the other 4 main established Super Rugby teams, I'd be looking to get this guy on my payroll. He's a really, really exciting player. And yeah, he's my player of the week. Right, let's move on to our final feature of the episode, and that is our Lions team. So what we're doing, for those that have maybe not seen the podcast before, is we are predicting our first starting test Lions team for next summer's tour to South Africa. Currently, we have a all-England front 4 of Mako Vunipola, Jamie George, Carl Sinclair, Mara Toji, and Alwyn Jones is broken up, / James Ryan in there. But Harry suggested last week, and it's a very, very good point about having a 6, let's say, second row in there. And he suggested Courtney Laws, but I'm going to throw a spanner in there. And I think this player should be, not because he's not English, and we're at the moment dominating by having a lot of English people in there, but generally at the moment is a hugely exciting back row player. And I think will cope very well. And as a line-out option is Aaron Wainwright. who had a fantastic Six Nations. So I would like to propose, as our discussion of the back row, which is what we're doing this week, to start at 6 would be Aaron Wainwright. Here comes Berryman.
Honestly, Aaron Wainwright is the name that gets dropped by international coaches more frequently than any other player in the last 18 months. He, obviously, when you and I watch him and when mere mortals watch him, we can see how good he is, but there's clearly something there that is on another level and should be even better this time next year. And yeah, no, I completely agree. I have got the Telegraph writers predicted Lions back rows, and he's not in many of those predicted, even in the wider squad. But yeah, he is a fantastic player. He will play for the Lions in a Test match before he retires. Maybe this one's a bit too soon, given the quality of other players and the type of back row that we'll need in South Africa. But yeah, a combination of really explosive speed, work rate, and very, very good technical skills. It's a good call, very good call. I'm going to stick with Courtney Laws as my 6, I think. Come back to me though in a couple of weeks, because it does seem like World Rugby are reviewing the number of substitutes on the bench, which would really scupper the 6-2 forever plan. And I think that loose forward would be the one to go. So you'd probably have to rejig that somehow. But yeah, I think for now I'm going to stick with Courtney Laws.
Johnny, Joe, you want to wade in? Cut the six debate? Anyone else?
think Peter O'Mahony won't make the squad. Yeah. He's great, but I don't think he'll make it. I do like the idea of Courtney Laws. Because he's especially against South Africa, because he's now put some bulk on. He's 19 stone, and we need some blokes to back up the locks and throw their weight around. And actually, he's he'll be one of the mature heads within the squad. I think I'm gonna have to say Courtney Laws.
Ricky, anyone else?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna keep saying this. Is the last we're gonna say this. The pack is my forte. So I'll be able to add more in future weeks. But it's quite hard to argue with those comments. Hopefully, all these comments about this random French second division side who's got the owner with loads of money won't come into it, because Courtney Laws has been placed on their list of hypotheticals.
That actually fell through this week. Yeah, unfortunately, they're in a bit of trouble. I'm not really sure why the Saudi or wherever they were Middle East investors came from, but they've disappeared as quickly as they appeared.
It sounded very dodgy, didn't it?
The club are now in a bit of trouble because they sort of maybe made some promises they now can't live up to, which is a bit concerning for them. Quite a historic old club, left in a bit of a lurch there.
Yeah, well, we could perhaps talk about that another time, but yeah, obviously that Laws was on that list of people that they wanted / said that they'd already signed. But given the fact that Laws clearly listens to this and he's like, well, if these four reckon I'm going to be starting for the Lions, I better stay in England.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's obviously great at what he does, and as you said correctly, it's going to be a really key battle against South Africa, who are really, really strong in that area, and we're going to need that bulk and that grit in that position, as well as having that line-out option. So Laws is a great option there. Is there anybody else that kind of fits a similar mould? Is Henderson similar in that sort of mould?
Yeah,
yes.
I think Henderson is, if that's how you're going to play it, Henderson is the one that you swap in as the direct replacement. Just looking at the options that the Telegraph guys have picked, quite a few of them are bringing in Jamie Ritchie. Not sure if he's more of a 6 or a 7. Couple of thoughts on guys that could place 6 or 7 or
He's
6 or 8.
just on Jamie Ritchie. He is pretty much like the Aaron Wainwright player, but Aaron Wainwright's better than him. So
yes,
and I think they've probably shoehorned him in there because he's the only other really good Scotland player after Stuart Hogg. So potentially,
I also think
but he's very good.
Is probably kind of Hamish Watson is the Scottish 7, and Jamie Ritchie is basically pushed into that 6 spot for Scotland because Hamish Watson is better. So I wouldn't give Jamie Ritchie a look in. I'd put Hamish Watson before him at 7, and I probably wouldn't start Hamish Watson, but I actually think one of the ones who might turn up at 6 will be Tom Curry. If they don't go for that 6/lock option, I think it's very likely to be Tom Curry.
Yeah, so I think, on the similar strand to Curry, and the thing that you really have to consider is the overall blend in terms of how you're going to get a line-out functioning. Because if it were tomorrow, Billy Vunipola would be your starting 8. And that means that,
we'll come back to 8 later.
Let's say Billy Vunipola is your starting 8. Even really, let's say CJ Stander is your starting 8. You need to get at least 2 of these 3 as legitimate line-out options with the back row that South Africa are going to pick. And so, like some people are saying, Stander at 6. Stander at 6, you have to have an 8 who's a good jumper. I mean, if I'm entirely honest, I probably wouldn't pick Stander in a test.
There's better players than him.
Yeah, completely agree. Tom Curry, good line option, not fantastic. Let's say Tipperick is better. Underhill's a bit taller than Curry.
Josh Navidi is even a better option than Curry if you're going on line out anyway.
Yeah, very exactly. So I think the problem with what you start thinking about when it's the back row is such a hard thing to pick because they all have to blend in with each other quite well.
I'd say on that Tom Curry at the moment is the best 7 in the Northern Hemisphere, or one of the best 7s in the Northern Hemisphere, with Sam Underhill potentially / Josh Navidi.
I think your best option at 7, not necessarily the best player, but your best option against South Africa is Sam Underhill.
Yeah.
Because he's a big brute of a man and he'll challenge that South African pack.
An awesome tackler.
I think they'll pick Tipperick. Because if I mean, this is assuming we've got Laws there. If your back row is Laws, Tipperick, you could play like Ellis Genge at 8 for all the line-out power for all the line-out options you need. I think Tipperick is in the form of his life. He was brilliant at the World Cup.
Good Nations as well.
Yeah, Gatland loves him. He's really coming into the form of his career. If he can keep it going, it's looking like the Pro 14 is going to be the most competitive league in the Northern Hemisphere quite quickly, given that half the South African teams are joining it. The Premiership is going to be all over the place with late starts and suspensions, but the Pro 14 will be playing on time, playing with all of their players. Most of those countries have, certainly Ireland, has really dealt with the pandemic very, very well. Who knows how the South African teams will be able to integrate with that, but I think we might need to include a few more Welsh players here than we have been expecting to. Tipperick is certainly my main. This guy needs to be in there.
I personally, I could see probably Gatland picking Tipperick at 6 and having Curry at 7. he might go that way. He might go with the 2 ball. We really need guys that are going to get the ball and turn the ball over. That's what you need. We need to at least have 1, if not 2 of those in there. But as you said, the back row is difficult. Number 8, do I dare say Hoskins to Tutu?
No.
Oh, that would be amazing. Imagine.
Could you imagine?
Day of the squad announcement. Down there in alphabetical order.
Signs for London Irish.
Wait, could Hoskins Tutu not get picked for England, play for the Lions, then go play for the All Blacks? Now that would be great. Could that happen though?
I feel
People
like
have
that
picked for the Lions before and never played for a country.
Yep.
I'm
really interesting.
It could be. I don't think there's anything stopping them. I mean, look at Matt Gitto. It's slightly different, but Matt Gitto played for Australia before he played for the Brumbies.
I have some sneaking suspicion that somebody very early on in the Lions played for the Lions and then one of those Southern Hemisphere teams.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
It's not obvious with a Google, but yeah, I don't like. There's no real. It's not obvious whether the Lions would be a qualifying sort of capture match, essentially, given that it's not a real country.
Who wouldn't turn that opportunity down? You could then go back and play for the All Blacks still.
I'm fairly sure it would have all the problems of those guys those Welsh guys that Gatland brought in because they were the closest players.
The Geography 6.
Geography 6.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be a great way to introduce him to the rest of his teammates. Yeah, here's this guy. He's played 10 fantastic games in his career, and we're going to bring him into the All Blacks ahead of Talupi Faletau, CJ Stander, Billy Vunipola, Caelan Doris, etc. Jack Conan. Any number of number 8s who these guys who are in the rest of the squad live, work, respect. I don't think it would happen. It would be amazing.
It would be.
But I don't think it would happen.
Realistically, what's going to happen is as soon as New Zealand confirm a fixture, even if it's against Fiji, Hoskins Tutu is going to play regardless. They'll nick him in. They'll get him a cap. He deserves it. Don't get it wrong, but I think New Zealand will potentially fast track it. So it's a nice thought, but let's be realistic. 8 options. So I've sort of settled on the fact that I've not won my Aaron Wainwright argument. So we'll go Courtney Laws and we'll go Tipperick at the moment. 8, if he's fit. Anyone else apart from Billy?
See, I reckon kind of going on Lions tour, if you were just going to pick it on kind of the past few years, Billy will be a shoo-in. And I think Saracens being relegated and Billy playing in the Championship plays right into Eddie Jones and Gatland's hands, because the next year could be a lot of rugby they're trying to squeeze in. And those boys will be playing in the Championship, won't play loads of games, and Billy will kind of be rested. So I think Billy's the only one who I would say is definitely going at the moment. But I think the rest of them, it's all going to be on Six Nations form.
Yeah, I mean, Gatland loves Faletau. So Faletau is almost certainly going to be on that plane if he's fit. And he started Lions tests before. Gatland picked him and I think Billy might have been injured, but Faletau was the 8 in New Zealand, and I think he was the 8 in Australia as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
With Heaslip. So he's obviously played in that shirt before. Gatland knows him really, really well. So he's going to be certainly in the talks about who will start that match. But for me, if Vunipola is fit and playing the way he has done, he should be starting.
I don't think Faletau's played enough rugby over the last 2 years. I think he'll need to get fit. Is he still contracted at Bath or has he gone home?
Yes, he is.
So
he's got. He agreed to take a 25% pay cut. I mean, whether he'll actually start at Bath is another question, because then we do have a lot of strength in our back row. I think he will. He's still only 29. And obviously he is Billy's cousin. So why not take them both and give them both?
Oh, yeah, I'm fairly sure the three that will go are Doris, Faletau and Vunipola. It's just which of the three you pick.
I've said Jack Conan would have gone ahead of Caelan Doris.
I think Doris is better.
They like him a lot, don't they? In Ireland, they've talked him up a lot,
Yeah.
and he didn't really get much of a chance because he got injured in the Six Nations, and then
he got a concussion in the first game. But for Leinster, he's been pretty good.
Yeah. Fair.
But yeah, frankly, it'll help Doris that he's going to be playing for Leinster in again similar to Faletau, in a pretty uninterrupted. I think clubs in like social clubs in Ireland are already back playing and training. Maybe not quite contact, but they're already back. Those guys will be playing without the restrictions that the English players will be playing with. I think they'll be in a slightly better nick by the time that next summer comes around.
The only thing that I think will go against Doris is just how young he is. He's 22, and it might be you want an experienced head at the back there. So that's the only thing that I can see.
I think that plays into his hands with him going on the tour, especially with Faletau and Vunipola being so senior
and fragile.
Yeah. So I think that plays into their hands. He's able to then pick somebody less experienced as that third option.
Yeah, and I'm fairly sure if you had to, you could play Doris or Faletau at 6.
Yeah.
I was going to say Faletau could easily play 6. It would be and because he's in the line out. If you want a third line out jumper,
it's not bad.
You can't go much. I'm just looking at the first their counterparts in 2009, which was Croft, Wallace, and Heaslip. Surely, we talked about age and experience. I think age is just a number, as they say. If you're good enough, play. Quite frankly.
Yeah, I would say that, but Gatland's picking it, unfortunately.
Yeah, the best coach in the world.
Well,
of all time.
Yeah.
Oh, how's that record looking at the moment, Gatland? But
yeah, no, I think it'll be interesting. Can't wait. It's going to be fantastic.
It is going to be good. So this is what we've got for this is our front 8 as we go into backs next week with scrum-half and 9. And again, I've got an absolute spanner to throw in, but I'll save that next week. That's going to cause a lot of controversy. Mako, Jamie George, Sinclair, Maro Itoje, Alwyn Jones, Courtney Laws, Justin Tipuric and Billy Vunipola seems to be our first starting 8 for the first lines test. We will see you on Friday for our preview pod, previewing the games as the Crusaders come back from their bye week against the Canes. And it's the Blues versus the Chiefs. And then it's the Rebels and Tars and Force versus the Brumbies in Super Rugby AU. As I say, keep an eye out on our social media platforms this week for some interaction stuff about our players and team of the week, as we'd like to hear your feedback as well. And have a great week, and we'll see you on Friday.
Yeah.
Cheers.